Have you ever felt like you're trying to understand AI in the enterprise, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, too much. What is all this stuff? Like you're drowning in algorithms and buzzwords and all these things you've never even heard of before.
Yeah, I get it. It's like you need a decoder ring just to figure out what's really important for your business, right?
Exactly. So that's what we're diving into today.
We're going beyond just the technology.
We're going to figure out how to make AI actually deliver results. Real business outcomes, the kind that gets people excited in big companies.
The kind that gets you buy-in, yeah. And to do that, we're going to look at the experiences of an AI solution architect who works inside a finance company.
So if you've ever been curious about how AI projects actually get off the ground and deliver real value, you're in the right spot.
Absolutely.
So for this deep dive, our mission is pretty straightforward, but also super important. We're going to try to figure out what makes an AI solution actually work.
More than just the tech itself.
Right, how do you build solutions that really make a difference to a business, that deliver real actionable value?
Yeah, going beyond the model.
Okay, so the first big thing we're going to explore is how to show that business value, those concrete insights you can use to make decisions. And to illustrate this, we're going to use a real-world example.
Predicting charge-offs for a financial company.
Right.
So the first hurdle is, how do you show that an AI solution is more than just a bunch of fancy code? You know, something that's actually going to help the business. It's easy to get lost in how elegant a model is.
Yeah, you can have a really beautiful model, but if it doesn't do anything, what's the point?
Exactly. That's not going to convince anyone to actually use it.
And that's where this financial company comes in. Their initial focus was on charge-off prediction. Now, for those of you who don't speak finance, a charge-off is basically when a lender, like a bank, gives up on getting their money back and just writes it off as a loss. So being able to predict this is super valuable for financial institutions, obviously.
Oh yeah, huge. Fewer charge-offs means a healthier bottom line. So we didn't have to start from scratch in terms of convincing them that this was a worthwhile problem to solve.
Right, they already got it. They already understood why this was important. But here's where it gets really interesting. A simple prediction, like this loan will probably charge off or this one won't, wasn't enough for them.
They wanted more.
They needed what we call actionable insights.
Yeah, they had these burning questions. What are the real root causes of these charge-offs? And how can we use that knowledge to actually make changes? Think about it. Knowing that someone might default is one thing, but understanding why gives you a chance to actually step in and maybe even prevent it.
That's powerful. So they really wanted to know if there were patterns in their lending policies or their risk assessment or even the way they communicated with customers that were contributing to these losses. Because then they could actually make changes based on that.
And that's where we brought in the power of explainable AI, or XAI.
XAI.
They have it like a window into the black box of these complicated AI models, right?
Right. It helps us understand why the model is making certain predictions, not just what it's predicting.
So it's not magic. It's giving us a way to actually see what's going on in there.
Exactly.
So what specific techniques did you use?
So we used a few different techniques. First off, we used something called feature importance. This basically ranks all the different variables, things like credit score, income, payment history, you name it, based on how much they contribute to predicting a charge-off.
So it shows you what the model is really paying attention to.
Exactly. It can confirm some of your hunches, which is always good, but sometimes it can reveal surprising connections you might not have thought of. Like maybe it shows that the amount of time someone has lived at their current address is a stronger predictor of a charge-off than their credit limit.
That's so interesting. It can really challenge your assumptions about what's important. Yeah, it can definitely make you rethink things. Another technique we used was partial dependence plots. These are visual tools that show you how changes in a specific feature affect the probability of a charge-off. So you could see, for example, how different income brackets correlate with the likelihood of default.
So it's not just a simple yes or no. You can actually see the relationship between these different factors.
Yeah, you can see the shape of that relationship. Is it a straight line or does it level off at a certain point? That level of detail is crucial for making smart decisions.
So it gives you that nuance.
Exactly.
And what was the last technique?
The last one we used was subpopulation analysis. This means we look at specific groups of customers to see if there are unique patterns within those groups that might be linked to charge-offs, like maybe a certain demographic is showing higher risk factors or people with a particular type of loan.
So you can uncover these really targeted insights.
Right. It helps you zoom in and see what's going on with specific groups of people. Maybe a certain segment of your customers is particularly vulnerable to a certain economic indicator. Understanding those dynamics allows you to come up with more tailored strategies that are actually going to be effective.
So the big takeaway here is that by using XAI to deliver these actionable insights, you're giving the company the power to do more than just react to predictions. They can actually use this knowledge to proactively change their strategies, which ultimately shows the real value of the AI solution.
And it was this ability to deliver not just predictions, but real usable insights that really got the client thinking. They started to
Mhm.
see the bigger picture, the wider potential of AI. They weren't just focused on that single problem anymore. They started thinking about a more holistic solution.
So they saw the potential.
Exactly.
What kind of questions were they asking at that point?
Well, they started asking things like, okay, we know who might default, but can we predict if a customer will self-correct? Will they get their finances back on track without us having to do anything?
That's such a smart business question because resources for debt collection are limited.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency. If you know who's likely to fix things on their own, you can focus your time and energy on the people who really need your help.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. And their next question was even more specific. If a customer isn't likely to self-correct, what's the best way to intervene?
So should they send an email reminder, make a phone call, send a formal letter?
Or in more serious cases, maybe even take legal action.
Right, it's a big decision.
Yeah, and these decisions have real financial implications. They wanted AI to help them choose the best approach for each individual situation.
So how did you address that?
So we worked together with the client, and we ended up defining not just one, but a sequence of 4 interconnected use cases. It's kind of like a relay race.
Right.
The output of one informs the next, creating an end-to-end business solution. I like to think of it as a value pipeline.
A value pipeline.
Yeah, it's a great way to visualize it. So let's break down those 4 use cases. First, you have detect charge-off cases. That's the initial model that predicts who's at risk of default. This is what we call a classification model because it's putting customers into different categories, high risk or low risk.
Got it.
Then, building on that prediction, we have estimate the amount of loss. This uses a different type of AI model, a regression model.
Right.
It predicts a continuous value, in this case the amount of the potential loss, instead of just a category like will default or won't default. Knowing how much money is potentially at stake helps prioritize things.
So it adds another layer of information.
Right. The third use case is determine self-correction likelihood. This model flags the instances where a customer might actually fix their financial problems without any help from the company.
So they don't waste resources.
Exactly. It's all about being strategic. And finally, we have determine the most effective intervention. This model recommends the best course of action for each customer who's unlikely to self-correct.
Based on all the previous steps.
Exactly. It looks at a bunch of different factors to suggest the most efficient and appropriate intervention.
So you've got this chain of AI models all working together.
Yeah, it's not just 4 separate models doing their own thing. It's a chain of values.
That chain of values, I love that.
The prediction of a charge-off informs the estimation of the loss, which then influences the assessment of self-correction likelihood, which ultimately leads to a personalized intervention recommendation.
That's like a domino effect.
Yeah, and the key here is that it's not just about having a fancy model. It's about delivering value at each stage of the customer lifecycle, from the moment you detect the risk to the moment you decide what action to take.
So it's a holistic approach.
Exactly. It shows that you really understand the client's business and how AI can be integrated into their operations to make things better. And that was what ultimately sealed the deal. That's what got us the contract.
So you got the contract. That's amazing. But that's not the end of the story, right?
No, it's just the beginning.
Wow.
Signing the contract is just the first step. As soon as we got the green light, we had to start thinking about the practical side of things.
What kind of things?
Well, for starters, did we even have all the data we needed for each step in that chain of use cases we had planned?
Right. You can't build a model without data.
Exactly. For that recommendation model, the one that suggests the best intervention, we needed historical data on all the different strategies they had used in the past. Emails, settlement offers, legal actions, and the outcomes of those actions. We needed that data to train the AI properly.
Makes sense.
Financial institutions usually have tons of data, which is a good thing, but just having data isn't enough. You need the right data.
So even though they had a lot of data, it wasn't necessarily the data you needed.
Yeah, we had to figure out what data was missing. Maybe a specific piece of information wasn't being tracked consistently, or it was stored in a completely different system in another department. Getting all that information together was a big part of the project.
So it's not just about building the model, it's about getting all the pieces in place.
Right, and this highlights a really important point. Enterprise AI isn't just about making complex models. It's about building that chain of use cases, a series of interconnected applications that work together to drive better business decisions and deliver a return on investment.
So it's not about isolated solutions, it's about creating a system.
That's where the real magic happens.
So the key takeaway for our listeners is this. Enterprise AI isn't about standalone algorithms. It's about building a value pipeline, a connected series of AI applications that each feed into the next, delivering real, tangible results every step of the way. That chain of value is what makes the real difference.
And that approach is crucial not just for the technical side of things, but for getting everyone on board, showing them that AI can actually deliver measurable results. That's what gets you those contracts and drives adoption.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on. How can you apply this idea of a chain of value to other challenges, maybe in a completely different industry? Even beyond AI, what are the individual steps that, when you connect them in a smart way, could lead to a more complete and ultimately more effective solution? It's all about seeing the bigger picture and understanding how all the pieces fit together to create something truly valuable.
That's the challenge, right? Thinking beyond the individual parts and seeing the whole system.
Exactly. And that's where the real innovation happens. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.